right, so I hope you've now had a chance to complete the first part of the survey. And now we're going to move on. And the first thing that we're going to ask you to do is silently, just to yourself, we want you to take a look at this and to rate your life. And so there's no need to share what your rating is, but basically the top end of the ladder, the best possible life ever. If you have the best possible life ever, then you're going to rate your life as a 10. If you have the worst life ever, you're going to rate yourself as a 0. And the reason why we're asking you to do this is because we're going to be able to compare this with what math and science teachers have to say about their lives as well. So we did say that a poll is going to pop up on the screen, but it's not going to because we had a little glitch with our polls. And so no problem. We're just going to ask you to think to yourself in your head on which step of this ladder would you say you feel you stand at this time. So think about how you would rate your life right now. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc., all the way up to number 10. All right, does everybody have a number for how you would rate your life currently? Nancy, do you have a number? You do, okay.
Celeste, do we have to be honest?
Well, listen, since you're not going to tell me, you can actually be very honest with yourself. So yeah, I don't think there's any way to not be honest with yourself. So, but you're not going to have to share it with anybody. That it's personal, and we do not expect you to share that. All right, now we want you to engage in fantasy. Think about all of the things that you have in your future. So this next question is, on what step of this ladder from the worst possible life to the best possible life, where do you think you will be in 5 years from now? 5 years from now, maybe you will have finished college. Maybe 5 years from now, you're going to be starting a career in teaching or something else. Maybe 5 years from now, you have other plans. Maybe your kids are going to be a little bit older. Who knows? Just think about 5 years from now. So you should have two numbers in your head. The first one is where you rate your life right now, and the second one is where you anticipate how you would rate your life in 5 years. All right, now we're going to move on. Thank you. You should have those two numbers in your head. Okay, so now we want to share with you some information about math and science teachers. There are a lot of survey groups that actually ask a lot of people this kind of question. And so what they do to make sense of their data is that they rate people at the top end if they rated their lives at 7 or 8 or 9 or 10. And then they rated their lives at the bottom end if they had 4 or 3 or 2 or 1 or 0. And they kind of ignore everybody in the middle. And the reason why they do that is because they want to have more emphasis on those basically who rate their lives very highly, and then those who rate their lives very poorly. So I just wanted to explain exactly what our numbers are going to mean. If we could advance that now, thank you very much. Okay, so basically keeping those two numbers in mind, keeping the percentage of people who were rated their lives as very highly and the percentage of people who rated their lives very low on the lower end. What we know is that we subtract those two numbers. For example, let's say that 30% of the people rate their lives very highly, but 20% of people in a particular profession rate their lives very poorly. So they would subtract those two, and that difference between, say, 30% and 20% is what we're seeing right here. It's the difference between the people who rate their lives very high and the people who rate their lives very low. And so that gives us these different bar charts here. And so basically what we know is that we ask people in different professions how they rate their lives. The people in the profession that rate their lives the absolute highest are the physicians. Number 2 are teachers. So people who work in the teaching profession, contrary to what we hear in the press, And yes, there are certainly struggles in the teaching profession. There are certainly challenges. However, people who actually work in the teaching profession, when they're asked to rate their lives more highly than people in any other profession except for doctors. So that's the point of this particular graph.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And yeah, like Celeste mentioned, teachers in the United States rate their lives better than all other occupations except physicians, which I would always like to point out that physicians is another of the service careers, so very similar. And the reason for this that we found is that teachers get to exercise a lot of skills that contribute to their job satisfaction, such as critical thinking, confidence, curiosity, creativity, collaboration, teamwork, and innovation. And one thing that we also hear a lot is that teaching every day is different, every day is new, really keeps you on your feet. And we find that a lot of teachers, especially in the science and the math, actually tend to enjoy that quite a lot.
Thank you, Nancy. And so what we would like you to do now is just to take a minute and think about why. What do you think might be some of the reasons that teachers rate their lives so highly? And so, Nancy, what do you think instead of going into breakout groups to chat about it, maybe having people put information, their thoughts over in the chat? Okay,
I like
yeah, so
that.
let's do that. So we're inviting you right now to start listing some reasons over in the chat why you think it is that teachers tend to rate their lives so highly. I'd like to hear from everybody. I'd like to hear from Daisy and Jose. Kathleen, if you would mind jumping in, I would appreciate that as well. Monica, Olivia, and Shaheen and Cindy, and Sophia and she. Please put over in the chat some reasons why you think, okay, so Cindy says, and she probably knows this from experience, right, Cindy? Because this is what you're already a teacher, right? So she says the palpable impact, meaning it's the impact that you're having on students' lives in a positive way is immediate and you can feel it. Thank you for that, Cindy. What other ideas do you have? We'd like to hear from everybody, one or two ideas from everybody. So think about what a teacher's life is like and what their work day is like and their work year is like. And, think about some of the other reasons that teachers rate their lives so highly. I'm hoping to hear from every single person. Okay, thank you, Sophia. Getting to make other people happy. Awesome. That is so lovely. Other thoughts? Kathleen says there are many career options within the field of education. That is absolutely true. And that oftentimes you're working with students who are very grateful to have had the opportunity to have you as a teacher. That is so true. Awesome. Jose, I think I'm really curious, but you talk about supportive communities. And I'm wondering if you're talking about, say, a classroom community, a school community, or maybe the teaching community. And as somebody who was a high school math teacher at one point in my life, I can tell you truly that I'm still very good friends with my math teacher buddies. Shaheen has some great ideas here. So the opportunity to work with children and it's love. And honestly, that is so true. And I'm sure that Cindy can tell you that. When you're working with children, they absolutely do love you. That's really awesome. Yeah. These are wonderful, great ideas. So now I think you have all tapped into some really great ideas. And what we're going to do now is go ahead and share with you a little bit more.
So for the past several years, folks at Get the Facts Out have actually been trying to understand why teachers rate their lives so highly. They have mined data from lots of different sources and collected some of their own in order to really understand. And what they found is that the reason why teachers rate their lives so highly compared to other professionals really fall into one of these three categories. So the first one is a good and positive work-life balance. Teachers tend to get pretty flexible schedules schedules. They have summers off, which is a good time to recharge, spend time with family. They can pursue other interests during that time as well. They're often in a district where they have negotiated paid holidays, so you get all of the major holidays off. Again, spend time with your family or with your children. If you have children, you don't have to worry about finding a babysitter during that time. And teachers often leave their classrooms at around 2:30 to 3:15, which gives them a good amount of time to also accomplish things during business hours before other businesses close. And then just like you guys mentioned, teachers have very positive relationships with their students and with their colleagues. Oftentimes, teachers will talk about how amazing their students are, how great it is to see a student have that like light bulb moment in a classroom, or how much they enjoy just sitting with their colleagues and talking about curriculum or what their personal lives entail. And of course, we're always going to need teachers. I hope I never see a day where we don't need a teacher. So financial stability is always going to be there. You're always going to be able to find a job. Knock on wood, that no robots will take over the teaching profession. We will always be around. And you can definitely guarantee to have a livable wage if you fall into this profession as well.
Thank you, Nancy. Appreciate that. All right, on this next slide, we want to talk about what factors go into a person's sense of well-being. So there was a poll from Gallup Healthways, and what they were looking at is people's emotional health, their healthy behaviors, their access to basic necessities, physical health, work environment, etc. And so they said this might also include, and we're talking about, why do teachers rate their lives so highly? What are some of the factors? And that includes these things: physical health, emotional health, etc. But it also might include other things, such as oftentimes teachers talk about having a sense of meaning in their lives. They're not just like, and I did this for a short period of time in my life. I worked at a burger joint, flipping burgers, and I worked at a place that was a manufacturing plant. And I have to tell you, it doesn't have the meaning that you get when you're actually helping people to learn. And then also that idea that Nancy talked about of financial stability, it's really important for us. It's like we don't want to go into the teaching profession just because we want to help other people. We really hope that there's something in it for us too. And I think what many of us saw was the incredible financial instability that we went through back with the 2008 recession, and many people lost their jobs. And then also again during the pandemic, those were times of deep financial instability in the United States. But who was going to work every day? Who maintained their jobs? Who maintained their benefits? Teachers. No one lost their jobs. But also teachers talked about things like leisure time, and then similarly to what Nancy talked about, that intellectual and emotional stimulation that you can get from work, the schedule that she mentioned, the continuous opportunity to learn new skills and new knowledge, not just about the content that we're teaching, but you're constantly learning because kids change, their needs change. You have new kids every single year. So all of these different things really go into a person's sense of well-being.
Definitely. And another thing that our colleagues at Get the Facts Out really focused on is trying to see what day-to-day satisfaction was like for teachers. This is an incredible statistics. 100% of teachers agreed that one of these reasons is the reason for their job satisfaction. So either the student relationship and learning, their work schedule, teaching being challenging and scientific. And again, this is specific to math and science teachers, their colleagues, learning new content, and autonomy in the classroom. Our colleagues once again asked a room full of science and math teachers to tell them what provides you with day-to-day satisfaction. They were asked to silently write it down, and then they swapped responses with different tables, and they asked the folks at the different tables to agree on one specific item that they think also contributes to their day-to-day satisfaction. When we looked at the 60 responses that rose to the top, they seemed to fall into one of these 6 categories. And over half talked about their students, both relationships and students, where again, they get excited because the student is learning, the student is growing. And then they also talked about being able to take care of other things regarding their life after business hours, not being stuck working holidays or working breaks. They also, specifically for our science teachers, they talked about the importance of teaching that is scientific, that they can learn new skills through, that is exciting both to them and their students. And again, colleagues are a big thing. If you don't have a good colleague at your corner, work can be really tough. And so a lot of the teachers really said that having somebody that they can relate to, having somebody that they can work with is extremely important and definitely contributes to that day-to-day satisfaction. And one that I really like to highlight when I'm talking to prospective teachers is really having that autonomy in your classroom, being able to decide what happens in your own room. Of course, we're following a curriculum, and of course, we are, teaching our students so that they can progress and build on their knowledge and scaffold them so that they could explore new ideas, but we are also able to do that within our own guidelines in our classroom, and making sure that all of the curriculum is also relatable to us and relatable to our students, depending on the community that we work with. And so I just really love to highlight that because sometimes we talk with students who are like, I really just want to do my own thing, but I don't know how to do that in teaching. Trust me, your classroom will be your own little space and you'll be able to do that 100%. And now we get to talk about money, one of the most important things related to being a teacher. So once again, we're not going to have a poll, but I do just want to ask you guys two questions, and I would love a response in the chat. Question number one is, what do you think a typical first-year teacher makes in the Bay Area? Give me your best guess of a yearly salary for a first-year teacher in the Bay Area.
We want to hear from everybody.
Yes. Don't
Wild
Google it either. Just be honest. What do you think you would be making? 40K?
thousand. Cindy, thank you. We want to see some more guesses from Olivia and Alan and she and Monica, Daisy, Sophia, Shahin,
Yeah,
Jose. Jose, yes,
35K.
35,000. Olivia, 30,000. Excellent.
Awesome, awesome. Now I'm going to go ahead and pose the second question, and hopefully we get some new responses. After 15 years of teaching and earning a master's degree, what do you think would be a teacher salary then? So around mid-career, what do you think a teacher in the Bay Area would be earning?
15 years down the road after teaching for 15 years. Okay, so she says 60,000, Cindy says 70,000, Olivia 60, Shaheen 75. Okay, these are great guesses, and we are now ready to share with you some facts from our area. So something that I want to tell you about before we actually get started. There are two factors that go into your starting salary for a teacher. One factor, or there's actually three. One is how many years of teaching you have had already. So when you're a first-year teacher, you have zero experience, so you're at step one. But there are two other things that factor into it. One is how many credits you have taken after you have received your bachelor's degree. So different districts have what they call a salary schedule. So if you take additional coursework at a community college or additional coursework through a different, say, extension program, or oftentimes you might attend a training as a teacher and you can get some university credits for it, all those things count as credits that you earned after you got a bachelor's degree. And most districts will give you extra money after you hit, say, 15 credits or 30 credits or 45 credits. So that's one way to earn extra money as a teacher. And then the other way is to get a master's degree or additional authorizations. For example, teachers who have a bilingual authorization in most districts will earn an extra $1,000 or $2,000 a year. Teachers with a master's degree in most districts will earn an extra 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 degree. And some districts will even pay you additional money if you have 2 master's degrees, and certainly if you get a PhD. So keeping all of those things in mind, we put this together. And we tried to get a range of districts that, we weren't sure who was going to be here today, but we wanted to let people know. So for example, if you have just a bachelor's degree, but no master's degree, and it's your first year of teaching, meaning that you don't have any teaching experience yet, if you were to go to work in King City, you would make somewhere between $60,000 and $68,000 in your first year. And the difference between the low and the high is how many credits you have beyond your bachelor's degree. In Oakland, you're going to make somewhere between $62,000 and $73,000. In Pajaro Valley, which is down in my area and Nancy's area, in the Santa Cruz area, you're going to start somewhere between $58,000 and $60,000. In Salinas, you would start somewhere between 61 and 77, or actually close to $78,000. In Santa Clara, don't faint. Working in Santa Clara schools, you would start your first year somewhere between $92,000 and $102,000. That's not unusual for several districts in the Bay Area. Santa Cruz City Schools, not a super high paying district, between $63,000 and $66,000 your first year. And this is if you just have a bachelor's degree. And then in San Francisco, and I noticed that I think it was Jose who had said he knew what it was, but actually it's somewhere between $78,000 and around $84,000. But if you are starting in your first year, but you have gone to a credential program that also gives you a master's degree, then you can see what the range is for first year teachers. Not all credential programs offer a master's degree, so that's something to keep in mind when you're shopping around for where you want to get your teaching credential. Is it possible to also get your master's degree? Because it definitely, as you can see, will result in additional income for you. Nancy, we can go to the next slide. Okay, 5 years down the road. So how much will you be making? And so with, like I said, for each year that you teach, your salary goes up automatically. All of these teachers have very strong unions, and all of these salaries are negotiated between the teacher union and the district. So after 5 years, if we look at King City, let's say you started at the upper end because you have a lot of credits after your bachelor's degree. Let's say you started in King City at $68,000. 5 years down the road, you're going to be making $77,000. I'll go ahead and circle that. So King City, let's say you started at 68. In 5 years, you're going to be making 77,000. In Oakland City Schools, let's say you started at 73. In 5 years, you'll be making $80,000. In Pajaro Valley, if you started at 60, you'll be making 66, etc. And might as well jump to the highest one. In Santa Clara, let's say you started at 102,000. After 5 years, $117,000. If you do not have a master's degree, if you do have a master's degree in Santa Clara, you would be making $120,000 after 5 years. So what we're hoping is that we're dispelling the myth that the teaching profession is not paid very well, because in actuality, the salaries are fairly competitive for people with similar degrees. So could we get to the next slide, please? And then Nancy, what she put up here is after 15 years in the teaching profession, this is mid-career. You're not topping out your salary by any means whatsoever. King City, you will be making, if you also have a master's degree, after 15 years, you'll be making $102,000. In Oakland, somewhere between 83 and 102, depending on how many credits you have beyond your bachelor's degree. In Pajaro, $94,000. In Salinas, between 118 and 124. Santa Clara, after 15 years, you'll be making it as a teacher with your summer off and your workday ending at roughly 3:30 each day, you'll be making $155,000. In Santa Cruz, 102, etc. So we just wanted to give you a little comparison, because so often people say that teachers are not paid very well. But when you think about all the benefits that you have with your very flexible schedule, and I'm not going to lie, teaching's tough. because it's a very emotional job. As Cindy can tell us, it's like you care about your students, you care about their learning, you care about the relationships that you have, and not everything goes perfectly smoothly all the time, but that's true for a lot of jobs. But it's a very demanding job. But it's also a very meaningful job and a very gratifying job. And frankly, the salaries are relatively competitive. Thank you. We'll move on to the next slide.
Yeah, thank you. And just to kind of reiterate what Celeste kind of went over, all of the information about the stats that we're providing is again coming from Get the Facts Out, and they collected data from across the United States from over 400 districts. And the analysis found that at year 15, the middle, so 50% mid-career teacher salary ranges anywhere between 64 and 1,000 and 100,000 nationally. And they also dug some data from the National Center for Education Statistics, and they found that their data actually shows that the middle range can be anywhere between 62 to 103. So again, salaries are fairly competitive, especially if you're in teaching for the long run. You continue to accumulate more, and depending on your union, like Celeste mentioned, there's a lot of advocacy for teacher salary and cost of living, which often goes and helps out with that cost of living for teachers as well. And similarly, to how can we make more money as teachers, apart from getting your master's degree or continuing to get credits at a community college, teacher salaries oftentimes also include extra pay and stipend bonuses depending on extracurricular activities that teachers choose to do. All of the salaries we discussed are just base salaries, so the minimum teachers receive, but most teachers often become coaches, sponsor clubs, they sub for other teachers or their tutors on their own time. And this usually can award a teacher a base of about $1,000 to $8,000 per year of just optional activities that is added on top of their teacher salary. So this is another thing to keep in mind. It's also not unreasonable for teachers to add 12,000 to 18,000 to their salary, depending on the activities. And again, also depending on the district that you're employed at. And we also wanted to just talk a little bit about the difference between teaching and being a college professor. Maybe you're not interested in teaching and maybe you're considering a different level. Here's just some information about both seventh grade to 12th grade teachers and the comparison between folks who have a master's degree or a PhD and are currently working as professors. As we can see, in the long run, folks who are K-12 teachers actually end up earning just about the same as those who have a master's degree and a PhD. And then one key thing to mention here as well is that teachers can start working as soon as they get their credential. You don't have to have a master's degree to teach. It definitely helps, but you can start as soon as you get your teaching credential, which is oftentimes just an extra year added to your bachelor's degree. If you wanted to be a professor, you need at least a master's, PhD for the UCs and some of the CSUs or private institutions in California, which requires you to invest a lot more time and resources financially and otherwise before you can actually start making these salaries. So it's one thing to consider. And if we're looking at the graph, of course, we see that the secondary teachers, and again, this is the base salary, and the professors end up making around the same. And we're not saying that, don't be a professor. If that's your ultimate goal, definitely follow your dreams. But when we're looking at the financial aspect of teaching versus being in a college setting, it is very similar.
Thank you, Nancy. Appreciate that. I actually love this side because I feel like I have a lot of personal experience with a lot of this. So first of all, once you get a credential in the state of California, there is something called reciprocity with many other states. So for example, if you might want to move to a different state for a period of time or permanently, most other states will either flat out recognize and accept the California credential and give you a credential for their state, or there might be some small number of hoops to jump through. And I will give you an example. I wanted to move to Hawaii at one period in my life, and I had a California single subject math credential to teach mathematics. So I moved to Hawaii. And they said, what we need you to do is to take something called the National Teacher Exam. It was just a test in basic mathematics. And then if you pass the test, which I did, then that's all I had to do. And then they gave me a Hawaii teaching credential, which allowed me to teach in the state of Hawaii. So you can take your credential from California and you can move pretty much to any other state and still be able to find a job. But in addition, often you can also go abroad. I have many folks who I know personally who have gone to teach in Japan or have gone to teach in Europe or have gone to teach in Asia, various, say, different places. Also know somebody who taught in Africa. So it's really awesome that you can actually get a job virtually anywhere in the United States or abroad. Number two, a lot of people really struggle to figure out how someday to retire. And the teaching profession is one of the very few professions that continues to have what's considered a pension, meaning for every year that you work in the system, you are putting years toward getting a retirement salary. And yes, you do pay to be part of that. That's, you're going to have some money taken out of your paycheck each month, but it's a very good pension. And most teachers are going to retire somewhere between the ages of 59 and 61. They don't necessarily work quite as long as people in other professions, but they end up leaving the profession of teaching with a really good retirement income. And then also something to keep in mind, it's really important, is that if teachers take out student loans to pay for their teaching credential program or their college degree, there are a number of loan forgiveness programs for people who are in a range of service professions, or who work for the government or who are teachers. So teachers are always able to apply for a number of different student loan forgiveness programs. And in the state of California, the Commission on Teacher Credentialing has actually put together a website to give you information about how to get some of your loans paid off. Most of them have a certain repayment period, meaning you're going to make payment on your student loans for, say, 10 years, and then any balance that you have left after that will get paid off. So it's really important to read the fine print on any kind of repayment program that you want to participate in. But last but not least, the impact that teachers have, and I think that was Cindy that talked about this, they have just an amazing impact and lasting impression on the people that they work with and the people that they serve. So again, these are all really important reasons that are benefits for being part of the teaching profession.
All right, we have reached kind of the end of all of the data specific, all of the statistics, all of the really fun stuff for us folks who are in STEM and really appreciate it. So if you guys still have your tab open where we did the pre-assessment, we have a little post quiz for us to collect even more data on you. Can you tell that we are in STEM and we really like it? So if you can, go ahead and scan the QR code or just reopen the tab that you already had opened. It's going to ask you some follow-up questions about our presentation, but don't leave yet. We also have some specific UC Santa Cruz information to share with you all for those of you that are interested in pursuing your teaching credential or master's with us. So we'll just give you guys about 2 minutes to do the post assessment, and then Celeste will share some more information about UCSC.
Hey Cindy, you're just showing up at the top of my screen, so I'm gonna continue to pick on you. Can you give me a thumbs up when you're done with your survey? Okay.
Yes, I can. I just have to start again because this time I use my phone. So,
Okay.
so I have to go all the way go. I'm going back, but I will.
Okay. Well, then maybe, what do you think, Nancy, while people are working on that, that I can go ahead and talk to them while they're working on that? Do you think that's okay, or should we wait a couple of minutes
No,
first?
yeah, I think that's totally fine. I'll go ahead and proceed to the next slide.
Okay, very good. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about UC Santa Cruz. If you do happen to have an interest in teaching math or science, something that's really important to connect with is our CalTeach program. The CalTeach program provides undergraduate students who are working on a degree either in math or one of the many different science degrees that we offer at UC Santa Cruz. And also career changers, people who might have had a different career and they're thinking about going back and teaching. Um, then what CalTeach does is they give you some classes on teaching about how to teach, but also you get to do placements in schools as an undergraduate student. It's a wonderful experience for students, and many of them tell me that they learn so much about how to teach from their CalTeach experience. So that's a great opportunity. Other things that are really important for anyone to keep in mind who is thinking about doing a career in math or science teaching is you want to find some way to be in a classroom or to work with youth. And that can either be through maybe after school sports or coaching, or it can be in tutoring, but it's really important to get some experience working with students as well. Some other things that are really great to know about UC Santa Cruz is that we have a really wonderful Seymour Marine Science Discovery Center. We have something called MESA, which is the Math, Science, and Engineering Support Group. It's really an awesome program. And then maybe Nancy, you can tell them about the EOP STEM RISE program of peer advising.
Yes, definitely. So if students are choosing to attend UC Santa Cruz during their undergraduate programs at UC Santa Cruz, we have various ways of getting involved and learn some of the technical skills that you'll be using in the classroom. So through our RISE program and also our embedded advising that we do for our basket engineering classes, you are able to apply for a position as either a peer mentor or a peer advisor, where you get partnered up with first year students and help them navigate their first year as a STEM major at UC Santa Cruz. A lot of it has to do with, having these conversations about navigating college resources, really talking about more of the social emotional aspect of being a teacher, that sense of belonging, understanding our first generation identity, since a lot of our EOP or all of our EOP students are first generation students, and just also navigating the community that you're in and establishing yourself as a leader and a member of the community, which I find is extremely important for teachers. Being able to be a representation of the students that they're teaching is extremely important. So I'm shouting out these programs as opportunities if you do decide to attend UC Santa Cruz that you can look for to get more experience in the technical skills that you will be using as a teacher as well. But as a student, you can also access various resources through the educational opportunity programs at UC Santa Cruz, which relate to counseling, wellness, and really just anything that you need in order to be successful with your STEM identity here at UC Santa Cruz.
Great. And let's stay on this slide for just a minute because I did want to mention a couple of other things. I mean, if you are at a community college right now and you're thinking of transferring to UC Santa Cruz, or another institution, but you think you want to teach, get a credential in to teach math or science, it's really important to take as many math and science classes during your first 2 years as possible. You don't want to put those off until your third year, because at that point, sometimes students, if they haven't had a solid foundation at their community college, they've been known to struggle and want to change majors. But I also wanted to tell you that at UC Santa Cruz and many other universities, We also offer degrees in mathematics education or science education, meaning these are people who know that they want to teach science or they want to teach math, but they also know, well, they know they want to be a teacher. And so these particular programs actually offer a strong foundation both in science or mathematics, as well as some experience in teaching. Okay, now we can move on to the next slide. All right, so I wanted to just tell you very briefly about our teaching credential program at UC Santa Cruz. And I also like to share with you my experience. I went through a state university to get my teaching. I got a bachelor's degree in math, and then I went through a state university to get a teaching credential, and that was a 3-semester program. And then with that, with my bachelor's degree, but no master's degree, I taught for 7 years. And then I decided to get a master's degree. And then my master's degree in education was a 2-year program, a 2-year full-time program. So that was 3.5 years for me to get my teaching credential and a master's degree. And those were full-time programs. However, UC Santa Cruz, we have a very intense program. In 12 months, you can get both the master's degree and the single subject teaching credential. And if you're interested in teaching math or science, we have 2 different math credentials. We have one that's just regular math that allows you to teach all the way up through calculus in high school. Or we have something called foundational mathematics credential, which allows you to teach up through up through algebra 2. So that would allow you to teach algebra 1, geometry, and algebra 2 in high school, or any of the middle school math classes. And then we have 5 different options for science credentials. You can get a credential in biology, chemistry, physics, geophysical sciences, or we have a foundational science credential, and that lets you, and with the foundational science, you can teach integrated or introductory science courses, typically through middle school, but there are some high school classes that you can take. And with all of that, if you happen to speak Spanish, you can also get a bilingual authorization in Spanish. Some programs will offer bilingual authorizations in other languages, but what that does is it allows you to teach in classrooms that are dual immersion classrooms, meaning instruction occurs both in English and another language. We only have Spanish, but I know that at San Jose State, it's a much bigger program, and they offer other different bilingual authorizations. I don't know which, because I'm not with that program. Oh, and if you want more information about our program, then you can go ahead and scan that barcode, and that will take you to our webpage.
Yeah, and I will just give a quick shout out to San Jose because they will be holding their own workshop for Teach for the Bay. So if you guys are interested in getting more information on them, they will have their own workshop. But we're here representing UC Santa Cruz, and we're ready for questions. I got one in the chat, and I just want to reiterate the information to make sure that I answered it correctly. So Janet asked, what information can we get about teaching toddlers about math and science? When we're talking about toddlers, that's usually a multiple subject teaching credential, which awards you to teach all the subjects, math, science, history, reading, arts, PE, to folks who are children who are of ages or grades kindergarten to 6th grade. We are more specifically talking about just math and science single subject teaching credentials, which award you the opportunity to teach grades 6 to 12. Janet, if that wasn't your question and I just went on a random tangent about the credentials and how they work, let me know and I'm more than happy to clarify. But we're also here to just answer any other questions about UC Santa Cruz or teaching or all of the wonderful data that we provided to you all today.
So feel free to put any questions that you have over in the chat like Janet did. Yes, we can give you the slides. I'm wondering, Nancy, how we're going to give people the slides. If they give us I know your email address. I can make a PDF and send it to everybody who registered for the conference. How's that? Yeah, happy to do.
Just go ahead and put them in the chat too, so that everyone who's here can get them.
Oh, there you go. That's even better. Thank you, Nancy. You're really quick. Yeah, thank you for coming, Cindy and Monica and Alan, Olivia, Daisy, Sophia. Are any of you, Shaheen, Jose, and Janet, are any, and I know Jose, you said that you were already looking at the salaries, so it sounds to me like you're pretty serious. Are any of you thinking about potentially, oh yes, thank you so much, Shaheen. Any of you thinking about potentially pursuing a teaching credential? And is there anything specific we can answer for you? Well, if you hold on just 1 minute, then Nancy is going to put the slides over in the chat. But Cindy had another question. Oh, a certificate. Do you know anything about a certificate, Nancy?
Certificate for this conference?
I think attending this session.
Um, or professional development. No, not that I am aware of, unless you have a specific agreement with the college that you're at or the university that you're at. We are just an open resource for students or really anybody in California who wants to get more information. And unfortunately, yeah, we don't offer any official credit for students. I wish we did. But the slides are in the chat if you guys want to go ahead and save that PDF. And if anything comes up, any questions that you guys have, feel free to reach out to me. I'll put my email in the chat.
Great. And so if you have not had a chance, please go back to that survey and finish the survey because the first part of the survey is before we gave you all the information. And then the second part of the survey is after. So somebody asked me privately over in the chat whether or not they should complete that. Yes, absolutely. Please go complete the survey and submit it. Good. Well, we want to thank you all. If anyone has a question, we'll stick around for a few minutes and we are happy to answer any individual questions that anyone might have. Or you are free to go ahead and leave, but we highly recommend that you download the slides if you think you might want them.